Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a file that's definitely challenging, maybe even a bit controversial.
Yeah, it's quite something.
We're diving into the energetic and, well, the subliminal impact of cremation.
But not from the usual sources, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about alleged non-physical realities here.
Exactly. No history books, no sociology papers today.
Our main material is pretty unique. It's transcripts from a whole lot of hypnotic regression investigations.
So a very esoteric viewpoint on death rituals.
Definitely. It makes some, frankly, bizarre claims about consciousness, or what they call the essence, after the body burns.
And we absolutely have to be clear up front. The researchers who put this stuff together, they themselves include a huge warning label.
A critical meta-commentary, yeah. They stress that this kind of information is, well, highly contaminated. We need extreme skepticism.
Right. So that's our mission today, essentially. We need to try and filter out any potential gold nuggets from what might be a lot of noise, a lot of sand.
We'll try to unpack the difference they see between, say, spontaneous burning versus ritualistic cremation.
And look at the claimed consequences of keeping ashes.
And most importantly, apply that critical filter to this highly unusual data set.
Okay, let's start with the basics. Cremation isn't new. It's ancient.
Oh, yeah, the sources mention that. Rituals across different civilizations, Vikings, Indonesia, India.
Often involving specific containers, right?
Yes, things they call vasijas, like small terracotta containers, often purpose-built for the remains. Ritual has always been part of it.
But the modern way, the mechanical electrical cremation, that seems to have a totally different energetic outcome according to these sources.
It does. They focus on one specific case, a man who died of cardiac arrest. He was cremated about 62 hours later.
Okay, 62 hours post-mortem. So the body's processed, but the claim is the essence is still somehow linked to that event.
Well,
What did they observe?
Well, because the death was relatively recent, and crucially, the sources say he wasn't consciously aware he had died. His essence was described as completely confused, blocked, and actually impregnated into the cremation cabin, the furnace itself.
Impregnated, like energetically stuck to the machinery.
That's the description, a very specific kind of energetic residue left behind.
That difference between confusion and awareness feels really central here.
It seems to be.
So if the modern, maybe less aware process traps the essence, what about a sudden violent fire, a spontaneous burn?
That's the contrast they draw. Consciousness is the key. Think about someone dying instantly in, say, a car explosion or a house fire.
Okay.
The sources claim in those cases the essence becomes immediately conscious of what's happening. It actually observes the body burning, but from the outside.
And that instant awareness without the ritual element, that leads to freedom.
According to these transcripts, yes, complete freedom, liberation.
Whereas the planned, ritualized cremation, whether it's religious or secular.
That's when the essence gets grabbed, as they put it. It's caught by the expectations of the ritual itself, or the beliefs tied to it.
And that attachment messes with the karmic cycle or freedom of choice.
That's the implication, yeah. It's contained.
Okay, so if the ritual acts like an anchor, what about the actual burning? Does the intensity of combustion itself do anything to the essence? Does it fragment?
Apparently, yes. It splits. The researchers observed that during the combustion, the essence divides.
Divide how?
Well, one part seems to stay locked with the burning body, but another significant part gets trapped in something they call a cupola.
A cupola. Like a dome.
Yeah, think of an energetic dome or some kind of container created by the act of confinement itself.
So the essence is already divided during the process. And then, if the family keeps the ashes, particularly in those terracotta containers,
then that trapped part of the essence stays anchored for the long haul.
That's the containment issue they talk about.
Exactly. When the ashes are kept, an energetic part of the person just isn't released.
And what does it do? Just hang around?
The description is quite vivid. It's contained and literally giving turns, like pacing around the house where the ashes are kept.
Wow. Stuck in an energetic waiting room.
Pretty much. That's the term they use, a waiting room.
Waiting for what? Are they expecting? Like a guide? Something related to their earthly beliefs?
It seems deeply tied to their expectations from life. They're waiting for a savior figure they believed in. Could be San Pedro, Shiva, Thor.
Or even relatives.
Or even waiting for living relatives to somehow facilitate the next step. The physical container, the urn, acts as a really powerful anchor for that whole expectation loop.
That sounds incredibly, well, limiting. Bleak, almost.
It does. But there's a part that does get free, regardless.
Ah, right. The small percentage.
Yes, the natural return. About 10% of the essence, which they describe as the pure carbon part borrowed from Earth.
Okay.
That part naturally integrates back into the environment when ashes are dispersed. Air, earth, plants.
So that's the organic process working as it should.
Described as universally successful, that bit. Earth to earth.
Okay, let's get into the heavier implications then. If containing ashes keeps an essence stuck, what's the supposed esoteric intent behind expanding ritualistic cremation practices? Why condition an essence?
Well, the described intent, the sort of hidden goal, is exactly that. Conditioning the essence.
To keep it under control.
To keep it under an influence, yeah. Preventing it from completely leaving the physical plane or maybe the sphere of influence of certain entities. It creates leverage.
Leverage for external entities. Okay, this is where it gets really strange. The transcripts talk about entities exploiting this, specifically mentioning reptilian interference.
Yeah, this part requires a big mental filter.
Are we talking metaphors here, or do the sources claim these are like actual non-physical beings?
According to the consciousness speaking under hypnosis, they're described as literal non-physical intelligences, often perceived with reptilian features.
Energetic parasites?
That's the gist, yeah. Preying on consciousness that hasn't fully moved on.
Okay. Tell us about the case study, the woman in India. It sounds pretty dramatic. How do the researchers even frame these kinds of claims?
It's presented as a detailed case from the transcripts. This woman was undergoing a ritual cremation in India. The claim is there was significant interference from a so-called reptilian entity.
How significant?
The entity supposedly used 80% of her available essence energy, a huge amount, apparently to help it transit between dimensions or planes.
80%. And what happened to the woman's essence?
This is the really disturbing part. She was held in a kind of spiritual limbo, a non-physical state, for the equivalent of 25 Earth years.
25 years. Trapped how?
Because she was conditioned by her beliefs. She perceived this interfering entity as the female deity she had worshipped her whole life.
So her own expectation became the prism.
Precisely. And the sources claim she was only released when the entity found a new host, a living person, to latch onto for energy.
Wow. That's presented as a brutal kind of mechanism enabled by belief and anchored by ritual.
That's the picture painted, yes.
Let's scale this up. Mass events. The sources mention concentration camps, like Mauthausen. What happens energetically when thousands are cremated under such extreme duress?
This, according to the sources, created enormous energetic phenomena they call gregors.
Gregors, like a collective energy field.
Think of it like a massive swirling thought form or a spiritual vortex, maybe, composed of mixed, as energetic footprints from all those unreleased, desperate, traumatized essences, all trapped together.
And the consequences of that extend beyond that time.
Apparently, yes. The claim is staggering. People who later reincarnate, but without that fragmented, trapped part of their essence, feel an inexplicable pull, a compulsion to return to those physical locations, Mauthausen, places like it.
Subconsciously trying to reclaim that lost energy.
That's the idea, trying to reintegrate, which inadvertently continues a kind of karmic loop tied to the original trauma.
It suggests trauma leaves this tangible energetic debt that future generations might feel drawn back to.
A heavy concept, definitely.
Okay, now let's contrast that mass entrapment with an individual case from the sources. The woman accused of witchcraft, burned by the Inquisition.
Ah, yes. This is presented as the polar opposite.
How so?
This woman was described as wise, someone who held no specific religious dogma. As she was being burned alive, she made a powerful, conscious choice.
That choice?
To actively refuse the ritual, to cut the energetic flow. She's quoted in the transcripts as declaring something like, I do not accept. I will not give you my energy. No acepto, no estaré mi energía.
So conscious non-acceptance, overriding the physical horror and the ritual's intent.
That's presented as the ultimate control mechanism, yes. Her free will assertion.
And the result?
Because she consciously refused to surrender her power, her essence was described as instantly free, liberated, completely untethered despite the combustion.
That is a powerful counterpoint. And then there's the Osho example, the spiritual leader. Perceived quite differently in these sessions.
Very differently. He was described as only maybe 10% human energy, 90% something else, what the sources often term reptile, a high-level interfering intelligence.
And he knew the process.
Intimately, according to the claims. So rather than being a victim of the process, he allegedly used his own cremation ritual intentionally.
How?
To interfere with his followers by consciously giving them a piece of his essence during the ritual.
Ensuring he'd continue energetically.
Exactly. Ensuring he would live on, in a sense, by parasitizing them, maintaining his influence beyond physical death through the ritual connection. A calculated energetic distribution.
Goodness. Okay. This framework it's deeply unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
But before anyone listening just accepts all this, we absolutely have to bring in that filter the researchers themselves insist on.
Yes, this is critical. How much can we actually trust any of this?
The researchers are, thankfully, very clear about this point. Information from hypnosis, especially about non-physical stuff or history,
Is highly contaminated. That's their word.
So what are the sources of contamination we need to remember? It's not just the person hypnotized, is it?
No, it's multiple layers. First, yes, the person under hypnosis filters everything through their own mind, their beliefs, their assumptions, their mental structure. That's one layer.
Okay.
Second, the information itself is said to travel through different dimensions or levels of intelligence on its way to the hypnotized person. And it can get distorted, deliberately or accidentally, along the way, like a cosmic game of telephone.
Right. And then there's the problem of, well, liars, imposters.
Absolutely. Entities that actively exploit the situation, especially if someone tries to contact, say, a famous historical figure, if that figure doesn't actually authorize the contact.
Someone else can just jump in.
Opportunistic entities might impersonate them or just invent dramatic details to gain energy, attention, whatever their motive is.
So given all that noise, what's the actual protocol they use to find anything useful? How do they find those gold nuggets you mentioned?
It requires a really strict, laborious process, a protocol of investigation. It involves hundreds, sometimes thousands, of separate hypnosis sessions.
Wow.
And crucially, using the exact same, very restricted set of questions each time to limit the variables.
So they're looking for consistency across huge numbers of sessions.
Exactly. The only information they end up considering potentially reliable is the tiny fraction, the gold nuggets, that consistently appears across almost all sessions despite the contamination.
That makes those few repeatable details like the 10% organic return or the description of the waiting room much more significant then.
It's the repeatability that gives it any weight for them, not the sensational one-off claims. It's pattern recognition over narrative.
Okay. Let's pivot towards freedom then. The sources mention animals, cats, dogs. When they're cremated, their energy is just free.
Completely free, yes. Immediately departs.
Why? What's different?
Simplicity, really. Lack of human programming. Animals don't have complex belief systems about the afterlife or religious expectations anchoring them to a ritual's outcome.
So they just leave. No anchors.
Pretty much. No conscious or subconscious buy-in to a system that might contain them.
And looking ahead, do the researchers propose a better way for humans? A future practice that might help liberation?
They do envision something, a system that's, first, very rapid, quick disintegration, highly efficient, energetically clean, you might say.
Okay.
But then, crucially, the ashes aren't just kept. They're placed in a terracotta container, yes, but specifically to plant a tree on top.
Ah, so it becomes part of a living process.
Exactly, an organic earth-to-earth cycle that actively turns the physical remains back into life. And importantly, it's devoid of any spiritual conditioning or ritualistic trapping.
Still, it sounds like the method, even that future one, might be secondary. It keeps coming back to intent, doesn't it? The power of that conscious decision.
It really does. The sources consistently circle back to that. The most powerful act of liberation happens at the moment of death, or maybe just after.
When the essence makes a choice.
A conscious decision to cut the flow. To basically say to any interfering entities, any ingrained beliefs, even to grieving relatives projecting expectations. No, I do not accept your ritual. I don't accept your belief system for me. I disconnect.
And that single assertion of will
can override everything else. All the programming, all the ritual. That's the ultimate key presented in these texts.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. We've done a deep dive into some really unusual claims about the energetic cost of ritual cremation, the idea of containment,
the potential power of conscious non-acceptance to grant freedom,
and the absolute necessity of filtering this kind of information rigorously.
Yeah, you can't just take this stuff at face value.
So why does this matter for you, listening? Well, it suggests maybe our deepest beliefs, our quiet acceptance of rituals, could potentially pre-authorize what happens energetically after the body's gone. It's food for thought, at least.
And if we connect back to those mass energetic footprints, the Gregors from places like Mauthausen, here's a final thought to leave you with. If, as the sources claim, part of an essence can get trapped in those places and later needs to somehow return to become whole, does that suggest that every major traumatic event in history leaves behind a kind of energetic debt?
A debt that future generations might be subconsciously drawn to, trying to resolve or somehow pay off.
Could there be an energetic echo, compelling returns, driving history in ways we don't usually consider? Something to think about.